On the day of his 10th birthday, Lucas stood in the living room, surrounded by an explosion of colorful balloons and the cheerful chatter of his friends. Laughter echoed through the air, and the sweet smell of cake wafted from the kitchen, but despite the festivities, a heavy sense of absence lingered in his heart. He glanced at the photo of his father, framed on the mantelpiece, and a wave of nostalgia washed over him. The image captured a moment of joy, his father grinning widely, his eyes sparkling with a love that Lucas felt even in his absence. "Hey, Lucas, are you going to blow out the candles?" Jake, his best friend, called out, pulling him from his reverie. "Yeah, just a second," Lucas replied, forcing a smile. He felt grateful for Jake's presence, but couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was missing. His father, who had always been the first to wish him happy birthday, was no longer there to celebrate with him. As the birthday song filled the room, Lucas took a deep breath and made a wish. He couldn't help but wish for just one more moment with his dad. After blowing out the candles, the kids cheered and the cake was served, but Lucas's thoughts drifted as he sat down with a slice in front of him. Later, as the party wound down and the last of his friends were leaving, Sarah, his mother, walked over, holding a small, neatly wrapped package. "Lucas, I have something special for you," she said, her voice soft yet filled with warmth. He looked at her, curiosity piqued. "What is it, Mom?" "Just open it," she urged, handing him the present. With trembling hands, Lucas tore off the brown paper, revealing a simple wooden box. The box felt warm in his hands, and as he opened it, he found a letter inside, written on paper that was slightly yellowed with age. His heart raced as he unfolded it, recognizing the handwriting immediately. "Is it from Dad?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Go ahead and read it, sweetheart," Sarah encouraged, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Taking a deep breath, Lucas began to read aloud, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "My dearest Lucas, if you're reading this, it means you are 10 years old now. I can hardly believe how quickly time has flown. I wish I could be there with you to celebrate this special day. Remember, my boy, life is full of adventures, and I want you to embrace every single one of them." As he read, the words transported him to a world of memories. The park they used to visit, the games they played, the dreams his father had for him. He continued, "There's a place that holds our secrets, a park where we shared countless moments. I want you to find it, my son, and uncover the treasure of our past." Jake and Sophie, who had been quietly listening, exchanged glances filled with intrigue. "What does he mean by treasure?" Jake asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "I don't know," Lucas replied, the words hanging in the air, thick with possibility. "But it sounds like there's something important waiting for me." Sophie, her small face lit with enthusiasm, chimed in, "Maybe we should go to that park. We can find whatever treasure your dad left behind." "Yeah, let's do it," Jake added, his adventurous spirit ignited. Lucas felt a rush of determination. Perhaps this was the adventure he had been yearning for. "Let's go this weekend," he declared, his heart racing with anticipation. In that moment, surrounded by his friends and the echoes of his father's words, he felt a flicker of hope, a chance to connect with the father he had lost, to discover the legacy that awaited him. Lucas and Jake sat at a small corner table in the local cafe, sunlight filtering through the windows and casting warm patterns on the wooden floor. The aroma of fresh coffee and baked goods surrounded them, but their minds were focused on the mystery that had suddenly engulfed their lives. Lucas had just shared the contents of his father's letter, and excitement bubbled in the air like the fizz in a soda. "Okay, so we need to figure this out," Jake said, leaning forward, his brown eyes gleaming with determination. "What do we know?" He pulled a napkin from the dispenser, flipping it over to use as a makeshift map. Lucas nodded, a mix of eagerness and apprehension swirling inside him. The letter mentioned a park. It said something about memories and secrets. He frowned, recalling the words that had both thrilled and haunted him. "I think it's the one we used to play in when we were younger." "Yeah, the old one with the swings and the big oak tree," Jake replied, tapping his pencil against the napkin. What if we make a map of all the places your dad mentioned? We can check them out one by one. Great idea, Lucas exclaimed, his heart racing. And maybe we should include that little girl I used to play with there. What was her name? Sophie. Jake's face lit up. Oh yeah, she was always so good at finding things. We should definitely ask her to come along. Let's go find her, Lucas said, his excitement growing. He had fond memories of playing tag and hide-and-seek with Sophie, her laughter echoing like music in the air. They finished their drinks and quickly grabbed their backpacks, heading out into the sun-drenched afternoon. As they reached the park, Lucas scanned the familiar landscape. The swings creaked in the gentle breeze, and the old oak tree stood majestically, its branches swaying like arms welcoming them back. He spotted Sophie sitting alone on the grass, her curly hair bouncing as she played with a small doll. "Hey, Sophie," Lucas called out, running over with Jake at his side. "Do you want to join us on an adventure?" Sophie looked up, her eyes wide with curiosity. "An adventure? What kind?" she asked, her voice bright and inviting. "We found a letter from my dad," Lucas explained, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and nostalgia. "It has clues about some old memories in the park, and we need someone smart like you to help us figure it out." Sophie's face lit up with a smile. "I love solving puzzles." "I'm in." She jumped to her feet, her enthusiasm infectious. As they all gathered around, Lucas pulled the letter from his pocket, the paper slightly crinkled from being handled multiple times. "It says there are secrets hidden in the park, things that remind me of my dad. I thought maybe we could find them together." "Let's start with the oak tree," Sophie suggested, bouncing on her toes. "I bet there are lots of cool things around there." The trio made their way to the oak, and as they approached, Lucas felt a rush of memories flooding back. This was the place where he had spent countless afternoons playing games and laughing with his dad. He knelt down and began to sift through the leaves and dirt at the base of the tree, hoping to uncover something special. "Look," Jake exclaimed, pointing to the ground. "That rock looks different. Maybe there's something under it." They all gathered around as Lucas carefully lifted the rock, revealing a small, weathered tin box tucked beneath. "Wow, what is this?" Lucas wondered aloud, his heart racing with anticipation. With trembling hands, he opened the box, revealing a collection of old marbles, each one unique and colorful. "These must have belonged to my dad," he exclaimed, a mixture of joy and sorrow washing over him. Sophie picked up a marble, turning it in her hands. "They're beautiful. Your dad must have played with these here," she said, her voice softening. "It's like he left a piece of himself for you to find." Lucas felt a lump in his throat, a swirl of emotions threatening to spill over. "Yeah, it feels like he's still here with us," he replied, trying to hold back tears. "I just wish I could talk to him again." Jake placed a reassuring hand on Lucas's shoulder. "We're here for you, man, and we'll figure this out together." Sophie nodded eagerly. "Let's keep looking. There's got to be more." With renewed resolve, the three friends continued their quest, the warmth of their friendship weaving a comforting thread through the fabric of their adventure. Together, they began to uncover the layers of Lucas's father's past, each discovery bringing them closer not only to his memory, but to one another. The sun hung low in the sky as Lucas, Jake, and Sophie made their way to the overgrown expanse of the abandoned park. The air was thick with nostalgia, and Lucas felt a strange mix of excitement and trepidation as he stepped onto the familiar yet forgotten grounds of his childhood. The wild grass swayed gently in the breeze, whispering secrets he longed to hear. "Wow, this place is a total jungle now," Jake remarked, pushing aside a cluster of weeds as they ventured deeper into the park. "I can't believe you used to play here all the time." Lucas nodded, a bittersweet smile creeping across his face. "Yeah, I spent hours here with Dad. We'd kick the ball around, climb those trees." His voice trailed off, his heart heavy with the absence of his father. Sophie, who had been quietly observing, chimed in. "It's kind of magical, though, don't you think? Like a treasure waiting to be found." Her innocent enthusiasm was infectious, and Lucas felt a flicker of hope. "Let's look for anything that might have belonged to him," Lucas suggested, a hint of determination in his voice. They split up, each taking a different path through the thick underbrush, their senses heightened by the thrill of discovery. As Lucas wandered towards the old swings, he suddenly spotted something half buried in the dirt. Curious, he knelt down and brushed away the soil with his fingers, revealing a worn-out soccer ball. His breath caught in his throat as he recognized it instantly. "Guys, come here," he called, his voice echoing through the empty park. Jake and Sophie rushed over, their excitement palpable. "What did you find?" Jake asked, his eyes wide with anticipation. Lucas held up the ball, its surface cracked and faded. "This was mine and Dad's. We used to play here every Saturday," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of joy and sorrow. He squeezed the ball tightly against his chest, a rush of memories flooding back. He would always say, "Every great player starts with a simple kick," Lucas recalled, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I can almost hear him." Sophie stepped closer, her expression softening. "It's like he's here with you, Lucas. You have to keep this safe." Lucas nodded, wiping his eyes. "I will. It's important." He felt a sense of peace washing over him, as if the ball was a tangible connection to his father's spirit. As they continued to explore, Sophie suddenly crouched down, her fingers brushing against something hidden beneath a large rock. "Wait. I think I found something," she exclaimed, her voice filled with excitement. "What is it?" Jake asked, leaning over to get a better look. With a surge of determination, Sophie lifted the rock, revealing a small, weathered journal. "It's a diary," she said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Lucas's heart raced. "Open it. Let's see what's inside." Sophie carefully flipped the pages, revealing handwritten notes filled with thoughts and dreams. "Oh my gosh. Look at this," she exclaimed, pointing at a passage. He wrote about wanting to be a football coach. "Really?" Lucas leaned in closer, his heart swelling with pride. "I never knew that." Jake read aloud from the page. "I want to inspire kids, to show them the beauty of the game. Football isn't just a sport, it's a way to bring people together." "That sounds just like him," Lucas said, a hint of a smile breaking through his earlier sadness. "He loved teaching me how to play. He always said it was about teamwork, friendship, and passion." Sophie turned another page, her voice growing softer as she read, "I hope one day my son will carry on this dream and play with all his heart." Lucas felt a lump in his throat. "He was dreaming about me," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "All this time, I thought I was just following in his footsteps. But he was hoping I'd make my own path." "Your dad wanted you to shine, Lucas," Jake said, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You can do it." With newfound resolve, Lucas took the ball under one arm and the diary in the other. He knew that his father's legacy was more than just memories. It was a call to action. "Let's keep looking," he said, determination etched on his face. "There's got to be more here." As they resumed their search, Lucas felt a warmth in his heart. The past was no longer just a shadow. It was alive, vibrant, and full of possibilities, and with his friends by his side, he was ready to embrace whatever came next. Lucas held the diary tightly, feeling the weight of his father's dreams and aspirations pressing upon him. He flipped through the pages, filled with inked memories and hopes, when suddenly he stumbled upon a photograph tucked between the leaves. It was the image of a young woman, her smile radiating warmth and joy. Lucas felt a pang of curiosity mixed with confusion. "Who is she?" he wondered aloud, turning to Jake and Sophie. Jake leaned in closer, squinting at the photo. "I don't know, man. She looks familiar, but I can't place her. Do you think she's someone your dad knew?" Sophie, her brows furrowing in concentration, added, "Maybe we should find out. There has to be a reason your dad kept this picture." The trio exchanged glances, a shared determination igniting in their eyes. They would uncover every mystery, no matter how deep it ran. With renewed purpose, they decided to investigate the identity of the mysterious woman. The old cafe, where Lucas's father used to spend time, came to mind. It was a quaint little place, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries, and it was known for its cozy atmosphere. "Let's go there," Lucas suggested, his heart racing. Maybe someone there remembers him. As they made their way to the cafe, Lucas felt a mix of nostalgia and trepidation. The streets were lined with trees that swayed gently in the breeze, and he couldn't shake the feeling of walking in his father's footsteps. Upon entering the cafe, he was greeted by the familiar sound of clinking cups and soft laughter. The walls were adorned with photographs of customers and local events, some of which looked as if they could have been taken decades ago. Lucas approached the counter, where a woman in her 50s was serving coffee. Her hair was pulled back into a neat bun, and her eyes sparkled with kindness. "Excuse me," Lucas said, his voice slightly trembling. "I found this photo of my dad, and I was wondering if you recognize her." He handed her the picture, his heart racing. The woman studied the photograph for a moment, her expression shifting from curiosity to recognition. "Oh, dear," she said softly. "This is Clara. She used to come here often with your father." Lucas's heart skipped a beat. Clara? Was she special to him? The woman nodded, a hint of nostalgia creeping into her voice. "They were quite close, actually. Your father was smitten with her. They would sit at that corner table over there for hours, talking and laughing. But then, she moved away to pursue her dreams, and your father never really got over it." Sophie exchanged a look with Jake, and Lucas's mind raced with questions. "Why didn't he ever mention her to us?" he asked, more to himself than to the woman. "Sometimes, people hold onto memories that are too painful to revisit," she replied gently. "Your father loved deeply, but he cherished his family above all. Perhaps he thought it was best to leave the past in the past." Lucas felt a swirl of emotions, curiosity, sadness, and a newfound understanding of his father. "Do you know where she is now? Clara?" The woman shook her head, her expression sympathetic. "I believe she moved to another city. I lost track of her years ago, but if you ever come across her, tell her I said hello." As they left the cafe, the weight of the revelation hung heavily in the air. Lucas felt an ache in his heart. "I never knew my dad had such a life before us," he said softly. Jake placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, man. Everyone has their past. It just shows that your dad was human, just like the rest of us." Sophie chimed in, her voice brightening the mood. "And it means that love has many forms. Your dad loved your mom, but he also had a whole history that made him who he was." Lucas nodded, feeling a strange sense of comfort in their words. "Yeah, it's just a lot to take in." As they walked through the park, the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over everything. Lucas couldn't help but glance back at the cafe one last time, feeling an unexplainable connection to the past. The journey to uncover his father's legacy was proving to be more complex than he imagined, filled with love, loss, and the bittersweet nature of memories. Lucas stood in the living room, the remnants of his birthday celebration still scattered around him. The vibrant balloons, half deflated, floated lazily in the corners, while the remnants of cake lay on the table. But beneath the festive atmosphere, a heavy weight settled on his chest. He clutched the diary he had found in the park, its pages filled with his father's dreams and ambitions, each word echoing through his mind. His heart raced with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. His mother, Sarah, entered the room, a soft smile on her face, but Lucas could see the flicker of concern in her eyes. She sat down on the couch, her hands resting in her lap. "Lucas," she began gently, "I know today has been a lot for you. If you want to talk about the letter or anything else, I'm here." Lucas hesitated, the words caught in his throat. Finally, he blurted out, "Mom, who is that woman in the photo I found in Dad's diary? Why didn't you ever mention her?" Sarah's expression shifted, a wave of emotion washing over her. She looked away momentarily, gathering her thoughts. "I didn't know how to tell you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your father had a life before me, before us. That woman, her name was Emily." "Emily," Lucas repeated, the name hanging in the air like a ghost. "What happened between them?" Sarah sighed deeply, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "They were young and in love, but life took them in different directions. He had to make a choice, and he chose to be with me. but that doesn't mean he didn't care for her. Lucas felt a pang of betrayal mixed with sadness. So, he loved her? Did he ever regret it? The questions tumbled out, each one heavier than the last. "Your father loved deeply," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "He loved me, and he loved you. But yes, there were times when he wondered what could have been. It was complicated, and I didn't want you to feel like you weren't enough for him. You were his everything." Lucas processed her words, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within him. But if he loved her, why didn't he ever talk about her? Why hide that part of his life from me? "Because he wanted to protect you," Sarah explained, her voice trembling. "He didn't want you to think about the love he lost. He wanted to focus on the family we built together. It was easier for him to keep that part of his past hidden." Lucas felt a mix of empathy and resentment. So, he just buried it? Like it didn't matter? "It mattered," Sarah insisted, her gaze intense. "It was part of who he was, but he believed that you deserved to know him as your father, not as a man with regrets. He wanted to inspire you, to show you that life is about moving forward, not dwelling on the past." Silence enveloped them as Lucas absorbed her words. He felt torn between understanding his father's choices and grappling with this newfound complexity. "I just thought I knew him," he murmured, his voice tinged with disappointment. "Your father was a dreamer, and he had to make hard choices," Sarah said, her voice softening. "He wanted you to pursue your dreams, just as he had. And that love he had for Emily, it shaped him, but it didn't define him. You have to remember that." Lucas looked out the window, watching the leaves rustle in the breeze. He felt the urge to run back to the park, to dig deeper into the secrets of his father's past. "I need to understand more," he said resolutely. "I want to know who he really was." Sarah nodded, her expression a mix of pride and concern. "If you're ready to explore that part of his life, I'll support you. But remember, it's important to keep the love we have now at the forefront. Your father would want you to cherish what you have." "I will," Lucas promised, though uncertainty loomed over him. "But I have to know more. The next place I'll go is his old school. Maybe there are more pieces of him there." "Just be gentle with yourself," Sarah urged, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "This journey will be emotional, but it's also a chance to celebrate who he was." Lucas met her gaze, feeling a flicker of determination ignite within him. "I want to honor him, Mom. I want to carry his legacy forward." With that, he turned away, ready to embrace the next chapter of his journey, a journey that would lead him deeper into the heart of his father's story. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the old school building as Lucas, Jake, and Sophie walked hand in hand, excitement bubbling in their chests. The school was a relic of the past, its red brick facade covered in creeping vines, and it held a treasure trove of memories for Lucas, even if they weren't his own. The trio stepped through the creaky gates, a sense of nostalgia enveloping them as they entered the familiar grounds. "This place feels different," Jake remarked, gazing around as if seeing the school for the first time. "I can almost hear the echoes of laughter." Lucas nodded, his heart pounding. "Yeah, my dad used to run around here playing football with his friends. I wish I could have seen it." Sophie, who had been quiet, looked up with bright eyes. "What if we find something that belongs to him? Like a trophy, or something?" "That's the plan," Lucas replied, determination in his voice. "Let's start in the gym." That's where all the action happened. They made their way to the gymnasium, a large space with high ceilings and faded lines marking the basketball court. Dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight streaming through the windows. Lucas felt a rush of memories, imagining his father dribbling a ball, laughing with friends. As they approached the old trophy case, Lucas felt a mix of hope and anxiety. The glass was smudged, and the trophies inside were tarnished, gathering dust, but he still felt drawn to them. "Look at this," he said, pointing at a shining metal nestled among the cobwebs. Sophie's eyes widened. "Can we open it?" Jake stepped closer, inspecting the lock. "I think there's a key in the office. Let's go check it out." With purposeful strides, they headed to the principal's office, the door slightly ajar. Inside, the smell of old books and polished wood filled the air. The walls were lined with photographs of students from years gone by. Lucas spotted a picture of his father on a wall plaque, proudly wearing a football jersey. "Wow, look," he exclaimed, pointing at the plaque. "That's my dad." Sophie leaned closer, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "He looks so young. What year was that taken?" Lucas squinted at the small print beneath the photo. "It says 1995. He must have been around my age." Jake, rifling through the drawers, suddenly called out, "Found it. The key to the trophy case." "Awesome." Lucas cheered, his heart racing with anticipation. They rushed back to the gym, and Jake inserted the key into the lock, turning it slowly. The door creaked open, and Lucas felt a surge of excitement as they peered inside. He reached in and pulled out the medal, its surface gleaming in the light. "This is amazing," he said, holding it up for Sophie and Jake to see. "Wow, your dad was a champion," Sophie exclaimed, her admiration evident. "You should wear it for good luck in your games." Lucas smiled, the weight of the medal in his hand grounding him in the moment. "I think I will. It feels like a piece of him is here with me." Just then, an elderly teacher, Mr. Thompson, walked past the door. He paused, recognizing the trio. "Ah, Lucas. I remember you from when you were just a little boy running around this gym. What brings you back?" Lucas stepped forward, holding the medal. "I found this, Mr. Thompson. It belonged to my dad. He played here." Mr. Thompson's eyes softened as he glanced at the medal. "Your father was a remarkable player. He had a way of inspiring everyone around him. I often think about the passion he brought to this school, especially when it came to football." Sophie chimed in. "What do you remember most about him?" A smile broke across Mr. Thompson's face, and he chuckled softly. "He had a contagious enthusiasm. I remember him organizing games for the younger kids. He wanted to share his love of the sport. You know, he always said, 'Football is not just a game. It's a way to bring people together.'" Lucas felt a swell of pride at those words, realizing how deeply his father's legacy ran. "That's exactly what I want to do," he said, determination shining in his eyes. "I want to inspire others like he did." "Then you're on the right path, Lucas," Mr. Thompson replied, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Remember, it's not just about winning, it's about the connections you make along the way." With that, Lucas felt a renewed sense of purpose. As they left the gym, the medal clutched tightly in his hand. He knew this journey was just beginning. He had discovered a piece of his father's legacy, and it would fuel him as he continued to seek out the stories and memories that define the man he had never truly known. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the park, Lucas, Jake, and Sophie settled onto a patch of grass for their picnic. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, but beneath the surface, Lucas felt a heaviness in his heart. They had been through so much together over the past few days, peeling back the layers of his father's past, and now he was grappling with a mix of emotions he could hardly articulate. "Hey, Lucas," Jake said, breaking the silence as he munched on a sandwich. "You okay? You've been kind of quiet." Lucas glanced at his friends, who were busy unwrapping snacks and sharing laughter. Sophie, with her bright eyes and infectious smile, reminded him so much of his father, full of life and joy. But the weight of his father's absence loomed large. "I guess I'm just thinking about everything we've discovered," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophie, who had been picking at her fruit, looked up. "You mean about the woman in the photo? It must feel weird to learn something new about your dad, right?" "Yeah, it is," Lucas admitted, feeling a lump form in his throat. I never thought about him having a life before us. It's like I'm learning about a whole different side of him." Jake nodded, his expression serious. "That's understandable, man. But remember, everyone has a past. Your dad loved your mom, and he chose to be with her. That says a lot." Lucas took a deep breath, trying to process Jake's words. "I know, but it feels like I'm caught between two worlds. I love my dad, and I love my mom. But learning about this other woman, it's just confusing." Sophie reached over, placing her small hand on Lucas's arm. "You don't have to feel guilty about it. It doesn't change how much your dad loved you. Maybe he wanted you to know that it's okay to have complex feelings." Lucas smiled weakly, appreciating Sophie's wisdom. Thanks, Sophie. I guess I just want to honor his memory, you know? I don't want to forget him or what he stood for. Then don't forget, Jake chimed in. Keep him alive in your heart. Every time you play football, every time you score a goal, you're honoring him. He'd want that. Yeah, Lucas said, a spark of determination igniting within him. I want to play like he did. I want to do something he would be proud of. As they chatted, the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Lucas felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense of belonging and support from his friends. They were no longer just acquaintances. They were a team, united by shared memories and struggles. Hey, let's make a pact, Sophie suggested suddenly, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. No matter what happens, we promise to stick together and support each other. Friends forever, right? Absolutely, Jake exclaimed, raising his juice box in a toast. To friendship, Lucas chuckled, his mood lifting. To friendship, he echoed, lifting his own drink. They clinked their boxes together, laughter bubbling up among them. As the moment of levity faded, Lucas felt the weight of his thoughts return. You guys ever think about what you want to be when you grow up? He asked, hoping to shift the focus away from his internal struggles. Definitely, Jake replied, his face lighting up. I want to be a video game designer. I have so many ideas for games that could be epic. Sophie chimed in. I want to be an archaeologist. Imagine discovering ancient artifacts and learning about history. Lucas listened, a small smile forming. Those are both really cool. I just want to be someone who makes a difference, like my dad did, even if I'm not sure how yet. As they finished their picnic, Lucas's phone buzzed in his pocket, interrupting the moment. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. It was a message from his mom. Hey, I just heard from your mom. She wants you to come home. She found something important related to your dad, Lucas said, a mix of excitement and anxiety flooding through him. Jake and Sophie exchanged glances, their expressions shifting to concern. Do you want us to come with you? Jake asked, sensing the unease in Lucas's voice. Lucas thought for a moment. He appreciated their companionship, but he knew this was a moment he needed to face on his own. No, I think I should go alone. But I'll text you afterward, okay? Okay, Sophie said, her voice soft. Just remember, we're here for you no matter what. With a nod, Lucas rose to his feet, feeling a strange blend of anticipation and apprehension. As he walked away, he turned back to see his friends waving, their smiles reassuring him. He knew whatever awaited him at home would be significant, and he hoped it would bring him closer to understanding his father's legacy. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden hue over Lucas's home, he felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety building within him. Sarah stood in the living room, holding an old, dust-covered box that had been tucked away in a corner of the attic for years. Lucas could see the faint glimmer of hope in her eyes, but also a shadow of sorrow, as if the memories contained within were both precious and painful. Lucas, Sarah called gently, her voice steady but soft. I found something that I think you need to see. She motioned for him to come closer, and he felt his heart race. What could possibly be inside that box? As he approached, he could sense the weight of the moment. What is it, Mom? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah opened the box slowly, revealing a collection of old videotapes, their labels faded and nearly illegible. These are recordings your father made before he passed away, she explained, her fingers trembling slightly as she picked one up. I think this one is particularly special. Lucas's eyes widened, a rush of emotions flooding over him. Can we watch it? Please, he implored, his voice tinged with urgency. He had longed for a connection to his father, something tangible that could bridge the gap left in his heart. Of course, Sarah replied, a warm smile breaking through her earlier apprehension. She walked over to the television, fumbling with the VHS player, and soon the familiar whir of the machine filled the room. Lucas took a seat on the edge of the couch, his heart pounding as he waited for the screen to flicker to life. As the static cleared, the image of his father appeared, looking slightly younger but unmistakably familiar. He wore a bright smile, his curly hair slightly tousled, and Lucas felt a wave of nostalgia wash over him. "Hey there, buddy," his father's voice boomed through the speakers, rich and full of life. "If you're watching this, it means that I'm not there with you anymore, and I'm really sorry about that." Lucas's throat tightened, and he could feel tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. He looked at Sarah, who was wiping her own tears, sharing this moment of vulnerability with him. His father continued, "I want you to remember that life is full of challenges, but it's also filled with love and dreams. Always chase your dreams, Lucas, no matter how far they seem. You're stronger than you think, and you have so much potential." "Dad," Lucas murmured, feeling as if he could reach out and touch him. The warmth of his father's words enveloped him like a comforting blanket. As the video played on, his father shared stories about his own childhood, his dreams of becoming a coach, and the love he had for Lucas and Sarah. "You both are my everything. No matter what happens, I'll always be watching over you. Remember, the love we share can never be broken. It's with you everywhere you go," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Lucas felt a tear roll down his cheek. "I miss you so much," he whispered, his heart aching with a mixture of sorrow and solace. "Mom, did you know he made these?" he asked, turning to Sarah, who nodded, her eyes glistening.
"I did."
"He wanted to leave something behind for you, something that would remind you of his love," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "He recorded these messages when he knew he didn't have much time left. He wanted you to know how proud he was of you, even before you were born." The video continued, and Lucas felt a sense of connection he had never experienced before. His father's words resonated deeply within him, igniting a fire in his heart that he thought had dimmed. As the recording came to an end, Lucas wiped his tears away, feeling a strange mix of sadness and hope. "I can't believe I got to hear his voice," he said, his voice trembling. "It feels like he's still here with me." Sarah moved closer, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. "He is Lucas. He always will be. You carry his love with you," she whispered. Lucas nodded, feeling lighter, as if the burden of loss had lifted just a little. "I want to make him proud," he declared, determination igniting within him. "I want to follow my dreams." Sarah smiled through her tears, pride swelling in her heart. "And you will, sweetheart. You'll always have him guiding you." With that, Lucas looked towards the window, the sunset painting the sky in vibrant colors. He knew that whatever path lay ahead, he would carry the memory of his father with him, forever in his heart. Lucas stood at the edge of the field, his heart pounding with excitement and nerves. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over everything, and the air was thick with the sounds of cheering spectators and the rhythmic thud of soccer balls being kicked around. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for since he had made the decision to join the local soccer team. Jake and Sophie stood beside him, their faces beaming with encouragement. "You ready, Lucas?" Jake asked, nudging him playfully. "Just remember, you're not just playing for yourself. You've got the spirit of your dad with you." Lucas nodded, taking a deep breath. "Yeah, I can feel it. I want to make him proud." He glanced at his friends, grateful for their unwavering support. "Thanks for being here, you guys. It means a lot." Sophie gave him an enthusiastic thumbs up. "You got this. Just play like you did in practice. And if you score, I'll buy you ice cream afterward." A smile broke across Lucas's face.
"Deal."
"But only if I score a hat trick." As the referee blew the whistle, the game began, and Lucas felt a rush of adrenaline. He darted onto the field, his feet moving almost instinctively. He could hear the sound of the crowd cheering as he maneuvered through his opponents, the thrill of the game igniting a fire within him. Memories of playing soccer with his father flooded his mind. How they would spend countless afternoons kicking the ball around in the backyard, laughing and shouting with joy. "Come on, Lucas. You can do it," Jake yelled from the sidelines, his voice piercing through the din. With each pass, Lucas felt more connected to the game. He dribbled the ball down the field, his heart racing as he approached the goal. The opposing defender lunged at him, but Lucas sidestepped, feeling a surge of confidence as he kept the ball under control. He could almost hear his father's voice guiding him, urging him to take the shot. "Shoot!" Sophie shouted, jumping up and down with excitement. In that pivotal moment, Lucas seized the opportunity. He positioned himself, took a deep breath, and kicked the ball with all his might. It soared through the air and landed perfectly in the back of the net. The crowd erupted into cheers, and Lucas felt a rush of elation wash over him. "Yes," Jake shouted, throwing his arms in the air. "You did it, Lucas." Lucas ran to the corner of the field, his heart soaring as he raised his hands in victory. "That's for you, Dad," he shouted, feeling the connection to his father stronger than ever. As his teammates rushed to congratulate him, he caught sight of Sophie, her eyes wide with happiness. "See? I told you. You're a natural," she beamed, her enthusiasm infectious. "Thanks, Sophie." Lucas laughed, feeling lighter than air. They resumed their positions, and with the momentum from his goal, Lucas felt unstoppable. The game continued, and Lucas played with an intensity he hadn't known he possessed. He made several key passes and assisted in another goal, each moment reminding him of the importance of teamwork and camaraderie. The final whistle blew, signaling the end of the game, and Lucas's team emerged victorious. The players celebrated, and Lucas, still buzzing with excitement, searched for his friends in the crowd. He spotted Jake and Sophie, who rushed over to him, their faces filled with pride. "You were amazing out there," Jake exclaimed, clapping Lucas on the back. "I knew you had it in you. That was just the beginning." "Ice cream time," Sophie chimed in, her eyes sparkling with delight. "Absolutely." Lucas grinned, feeling a warmth in his chest. He had not only played for himself, but for the memory of his father and the love that surrounded him. As they walked off the field together, Lucas realized that this was just the start of his journey, not only in soccer but in understanding his father's legacy. The love and support from his friends made every moment richer, and he knew that he would carry this feeling with him forever. As sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the neighborhood, Lucas, Sarah, and Sophie gathered at the entrance of Sophie's house. The air was thick with anticipation, and a sense of nervous excitement hung between them. Sophie had just dropped the bombshell that the woman in the photograph was her grandmother, a revelation that could change everything. "Are you sure about this, Sophie?" Lucas asked, a mix of hope and apprehension in his voice. He had longed for answers about his father, and now, the possibility of connecting with his father's past felt both thrilling and daunting. Sophie nodded vigorously. "I'm positive. My mom always talked about how Grandma had a special someone years ago. Maybe it was your dad. We have to meet her." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on Lucas's shoulder and smiled softly. "It's a big step, but it could bring you closer to understanding your father. Let's go meet her." With a sense of purpose, they walked towards Sophie's grandmother's house, which was just a few blocks away. As they approached, Lucas's heart raced. What would she say? Would she remember his father? Would she share stories that could fill the gaps in his memory? They reached the quaint house, its garden blooming with colorful flowers. Sophie knocked on the door, and soon after, it swung open to reveal an elderly woman with gentle eyes and a warm smile. "Hello, dear," she exclaimed, her voice soft and inviting. "Sophie, what a lovely surprise. And who are your friends?" "Hi, Grandma. This is Lucas and his mom, Sarah. We have something important to talk about," Sophie stammered, her excitement palpable. Come in," the grandmother beckoned, stepping aside to let them enter. The living room was cozy, filled with family photographs and soft, inviting furniture. Lucas felt a strange sense of belonging as he took in the surroundings, each picture telling a story of love and family. Once seated, the grandmother settled into her armchair, her expression turning serious. "What's on your mind, children?" Lucas took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "I found a photo of a woman who looks like you. It was with my dad's things, and I think you might have known him." The grandmother's eyes widened in surprise, and she glanced at Sophie, then back at Lucas. "Your father? Oh, I remember him well. He was such a bright young man, full of dreams. What do you remember about him?" Lucas pressed, leaning forward eagerly. She smiled softly, her gaze drifting to the window as if she were lost in a memory. He was my first love. We shared so many wonderful moments together, but life took us in different directions. Her voice trembled slightly. He chose another path, and I had to respect that. But he always held a special place in my heart. Lucas's heart swelled with emotion. The pieces of his father's life were starting to come together, and he felt a connection to this woman he had never met. "Did he ever talk about me?" he asked, vulnerability creeping into his voice. The grandmother's eyes glistened as she looked at him.
"Oh, yes."
"He loved you dearly, Lucas. He wanted nothing more than to be a good father to you. I could see the joy in his eyes whenever he spoke about you. He had dreams of teaching you to play football just like he used to play when he was a boy." Tears brimmed in Lucas's eyes. "I wish I could have known him better," he admitted, his voice cracking. Sarah reached over and squeezed his hand, offering silent support. "You are so much like him, Lucas. I see his spirit in you every day." The conversation continued, flowing easily as they shared stories and laughter. The grandmother pulled out an old scrapbook filled with photographs of Lucas's father, capturing moments of joy and nostalgia. Each image felt like a window into his father's soul. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lucas felt a profound sense of closure. "Thank you for sharing this with me," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "It means a lot to know more about my dad and his past." The grandmother smiled warmly, her heart swelling with pride. "You have his heart, Lucas. And remember, love never truly disappears. It lives on in the people we cherish." As they prepared to leave, the atmosphere was filled with a renewed sense of hope and connection. The journey had been long and filled with ups and downs, but Lucas felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. Walking home, hand in hand with Sophie and Sarah, he looked up at the sky, filled with stars twinkling brightly. "I'll always carry him with me," he whispered, a smile breaking through his tears. "He's part of who I am, and I'll make him proud." Sophie grinned, her eyes shining with excitement. "And we'll be right here with you, Lucas, every step of the way." With laughter echoing around them, they continued their journey, united by a bond that transcended time and loss, ready to embrace the future together.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.